Hello, and welcome back to another impressive episode of the English Hustle Podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Maria. We're thrilled to have you with us today for another insightful episode.
Today's episode is all about the role of feedback in growth. We'll explore how feedback can be a powerful tool for personal and professional development.
Exactly. We'll dive into what feedback is, why it's so crucial, and how it can help you grow. We'll also share some practical tips on giving and receiving feedback effectively.
To kick things off, let me share a quick story from my own experience. Early in my career, I was hesitant to seek feedback because I feared criticism. But one time, my manager gave me some constructive feedback on a project I was working on. Although it was hard to hear at first, it turned out to be incredibly valuable. I used that feedback to make significant improvements, and it played a major role in my growth and success.
That's a great example, Alex. I had a similar experience when I was working on a presentation for a major client. A colleague offered me some feedback on how to make my points more compelling. It was a bit daunting at first, but I took their advice and it made a huge difference. The presentation was much more effective, and I learned a lot in the process.
Exactly. Feedback, even when it's tough to take, can lead to growth and improvement. And that's what we're going to dive into today. So, let's get started. Segment 2, Understanding Feedback. Number 1, Definition and Types.
Let's start by defining what feedback actually is. Feedback is information or reactions about someone's performance or behavior, which can be used as a basis for improvement. It's essentially a way to tell someone how they're doing, whether they're on the right track or need to make changes.
Exactly. There are several types of feedback, and understanding these can help us use them more effectively. First, we have constructive feedback. This is intended to help someone improve by focusing on specific areas for development. It's usually detailed and includes suggestions for improvement.
Then there's positive feedback. This type of feedback highlights what someone has done well. It's essential for reinforcing good practices and boosting morale.
And lastly, we have negative feedback. This isn't necessarily bad. It's just feedback that points out areas where someone needs to improve. The key is delivering it in a way that's constructive and helps the person grow rather than just pointing out flaws. Number 2, Importance of feedback.
Now let's talk about why feedback is so crucial. Feedback plays a significant role in both personal and professional development. It helps individuals understand how their actions and work are perceived by others.
Exactly. Receiving feedback helps us identify our strengths and areas for improvement. This is important because it provides guidance on how to refine our skills, address weaknesses, and ultimately grow in our roles.
Moreover, feedback fosters a culture of continuous learning and improvement. It encourages people to seek out ways to enhance their performance and adapt to new challenges.
Plus, when feedback is delivered constructively, it can strengthen relationships and improve communication within teams. It creates an environment where everyone feels valued and supported in their growth.
Absolutely. So, understanding the different types of feedback and its importance can help us both give and receive feedback in a way that's truly beneficial for growth.
Segment 3. Receiving feedback. Number 1. Open-mindedness. Receiving feedback can be a challenging experience for many. It's crucial to approach it with an open mind and a positive attitude. When we're open to feedback, we're showing a willingness to learn and grow.
Absolutely. This means listening actively without immediately forming a defense. It's important to focus on the content of the feedback rather than the manner in which it's delivered. If you can keep your emotions in check, you'll be better positioned to benefit from the feedback.
It's also helpful to remind yourself that feedback is a gift. It provides an opportunity to see ourselves from another perspective and to identify areas for improvement that we might not be aware of on our own.
Right. For example, if a colleague points out that your reports could be clearer, view this as a chance to enhance your skills rather than as a criticism of your ability. This mindset can make feedback feel less like an attack and more like an opportunity.
Number 2. Handling criticism. When it comes to handling criticism, start by taking a deep breath and staying calm. It's natural to feel defensive, but try to shift your focus to how the feedback can be used constructively.
A useful approach is to ask clarifying questions if the feedback isn't clear. For instance, if someone says your presentation lacked impact, ask for specific examples or suggestions on how to improve.
Another strategy is to separate the feedback from your self-esteem. Understand that criticism of your work doesn't define your value as a person. It's about the work and not who you are.
It can also be beneficial to take time to process the feedback before responding. Sometimes, stepping away from the situation and reflecting can help you handle the criticism more constructively. One way to handle criticism constructively is to develop a plan of action based on the feedback. For example, if feedback suggests you need to improve your time management, set specific goals to address this area and track your progress.
Examples. Let's consider some real-life examples. Take the case of a software developer who received feedback about the user interface they designed. Initially, they felt defensive, but after reflecting on the feedback and discussing it with their team, they made revisions that led to a much more intuitive design.
Another example is an employee who was given feedback about their communication style. Instead of taking it personally, they attended a communication skills workshop. As a result, they improved their interactions with clients and colleagues, which led to a more positive work environment and better job performance.
These examples show that feedback, even when difficult to hear, can lead to significant improvements when approached with the right mindset. It's about viewing feedback as a tool for growth and using it to enhance your skills and performance.
Exactly. In our next segment, we'll explore how to give effective feedback to others, ensuring it's constructive and helps them grow in the same way we've discussed receiving feedback.
Segment 4. Giving feedback. Number 1. Effective feedback.
Giving feedback effectively is just as important as receiving it. Effective feedback should be clear, specific, and actionable. It's essential to focus on observable behaviors and provide examples rather than making vague or generalized statements.
Exactly. For instance, instead of saying, "Your presentation wasn't good," You might say, "Your presentation lacked clear transitions between sections, which made it hard to follow. Adding brief summaries between sections could help clarify your main points." This way, the feedback is precise and provides a clear path for improvement.
Additionally, effective feedback should be delivered in a respectful and non-threatening manner. It's crucial to create a safe space where the recipient feels valued and understood rather than criticized.
Number 2, balancing positivity and criticism. Balancing positivity with constructive criticism is key to motivating and encouraging growth. This approach is often referred to as the sandwich method, where you start with positive feedback, address areas for improvement, and end with encouragement or positive reinforcement.
Yes. For example, if you're giving feedback to a team member who completed a project, you might say, "I appreciate the effort you put into this project, especially your detailed research. However, the final report could benefit from a clearer summary. Overall, you're doing a great job, and I'm confident you'll make these adjustments effectively."
This method helps in maintaining morale and encourages the recipient to view the feedback as a helpful guide rather than a personal critique.
Examples. Let's consider a real-life scenario. A manager noticed that an employee's report lacked depth. Instead of merely pointing out the problem, the manager praised the employee for their thorough research and then suggested specific ways to add more depth, such as incorporating additional data or case studies.
Another example is a teacher giving feedback to a student on their essay. The teacher might commend the student for their strong argument and clear writing style, but suggest areas for improvement in their evidence analysis. The teacher would then provide resources or strategies to help the student enhance their skills.
Both examples show how effective feedback can guide improvements while maintaining a positive relationship between the giver and the recipient. In the next segment, we'll explore how to integrate the feedback process into regular interactions and how to make it a constructive part of personal and professional development.
Segment 5. Role-play scenarios. Scenario 1. Receiving feedback. All right, Maria, let's dive into our first role-play. I'm going to provide you with some constructive feedback on a project you recently completed.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
Hi, Maria. I reviewed your recent report on our market analysis. You did a great job gathering data and presenting it clearly. However, I noticed that the recommendations section was a bit brief. It would be helpful if you could provide more detailed suggestions based on the data. This will give us a clearer action plan.
Thank you for the feedback. I see what you mean about the recommendations section. I'll work on expanding that with more specific action points. Do you have any additional suggestions on resources I can use?
Great response, Maria. For resources, consider reviewing similar reports from previous projects and looking at industry benchmarks. Let me know if you need any further assistance. Discussion. Maria, how did it feel to receive that feedback?
I felt a bit defensive at first, but Alex's approach was clear and constructive. Focusing on the specifics helped me see the areas I need to improve.
That's a good point. It's important to stay open-minded and view feedback as an opportunity to grow rather than a personal critique. Scenario 2. Giving feedback.
Now let's switch roles. I'm going to give you feedback on a recent presentation you did.
Sounds great. I'm ready for your feedback.
Hi, Alex. I wanted to talk about your presentation from last week. Your introduction and visuals were engaging, but I felt that the main content lacked depth in some areas. For example, the section on market trends could benefit from more detailed analysis. I think adding some additional data or case studies would make your point stronger.
Thank you for the feedback, Maria. I understand the need for more depth in the market trends section. I'll look into incorporating more data and examples. I appreciate your suggestions.
Discussion. How did you feel receiving that feedback, Alex?
I found it very helpful. Maria was specific about what needed improvement and offered constructive suggestions, which makes it easier to act on.
That's the goal. When giving feedback, being specific and constructive helps the recipient understand what to improve and how to go about it.
Segment 6, Q&A session. Number 1, listener. Questions. Welcome to our Q&A session. We've gathered some great questions from our listeners about giving and receiving feedback. Let's dive into them.
Here's our first question. How can I ask for feedback without seeming insecure or overly critical of my own work?
That's a great question. Asking for feedback shows a willingness to improve, not insecurity. You can frame it positively by saying something like, "I'd love to hear your thoughts on how I can enhance this project. Are there any specific areas where you think I could improve?" This approach shows that you value the feedback and are open to growth.
Our next question is, how do you handle feedback that you don't agree with or find unhelpful? Sue.
It's important to listen carefully and consider the feedback objectively. If you don't agree with it, try to understand the underlying concerns. You can respond with, "I appreciate your feedback. Could you provide more examples or clarify your suggestions? I want to make sure I fully understand your perspective." This approach can help you gain more insight or clarify misunderstandings.
Number 2, common concerns. Now let's address some common concerns and misconceptions about feedback.
A common concern is that feedback is often seen as criticism rather than a tool for growth. To address this, always approach feedback with an open mind and focus on how it can help you improve. Remember, feedback is a way to enhance your skills and performance, not a personal attack.
Another concern is that feedback can sometimes be vague or non-specific. In these cases, seek clarification by asking for concrete examples or actionable advice. This can help turn vague feedback into something practical and useful.
Finally, some people worry about the potential for receiving feedback in a way that feels harsh or unkind. It's important to focus on the content of the feedback and not the delivery. If the feedback is harsh, try to separate the message from the manner in which it was delivered. You can also request more constructive feedback in a more supportive tone if needed.
Absolutely. It's all about using feedback as a tool for your own development and growth. With the right mindset and approach, feedback can become a valuable part of your personal and professional journey.
That wraps up our Q&A session. We hope this has provided some useful insights and answers to your questions about feedback. Stay tuned for our next segment, where we'll discuss practical tips and takeaways for implementing feedback in your daily life. Segment 8, Integrating Feedback into Personal Growth. Number 1. Action plans. Now that we've discussed receiving and giving feedback, let's talk about how to integrate feedback into your personal growth. The first step is creating an action plan based on the feedback you've received.
An action plan is a structured approach to implementing feedback. Start by identifying specific areas for improvement that were highlighted in the feedback. Set clear, achievable goals for each area and outline the steps you need to take to address them.
For example, if you received feedback about improving your presentation skills, your action plan might include attending a public speaking workshop, practicing your presentations with a friend, and reviewing recordings of your previous presentations to identify areas for improvement. Number 2, tracking progress.
Once you have your action plan, it's crucial to track your progress. Monitoring how well you're implementing the feedback helps ensure that you're making tangible improvements.
Regularly review your goals and assess your progress. You can use tools like progress journals, checklists, or project management apps to keep track of your achievements and setbacks.
If you find that certain strategies aren't working as well as expected, adjust your approach based on further feedback or new insights. Flexibility is key to effective personal growth.
Number 3, examples. Let's look at some real-life examples of individuals who successfully integrated feedback into their growth strategies.
One notable example is Sarah, a project manager who received feedback about her team management skills. She created an action plan that included enrolling in a leadership course, scheduling regular one-on-one meetings with her team members, and implementing new team-building activities. Over time, her team's performance improved and her leadership skills became more refined.
Another example is John, who was advised to enhance his public speaking skills. He joined a local Toastmasters club, practiced his speeches regularly, and sought feedback from peers. His confidence and speaking abilities grew significantly, leading to better opportunities in his career.
These examples show how actionable steps and consistent tracking can lead to significant personal and professional growth. By integrating feedback thoughtfully and systematically, you can make meaningful progress in your development journey.
Absolutely. Remember, feedback is a powerful tool when combined with a well-structured action plan and ongoing progress evaluation. Embrace it as an opportunity for growth and improvement.
That concludes our segment on integrating feedback into personal growth. Next, we'll cover practical tips and takeaways to help you apply these concepts effectively in your own life.
Segment 9. Overcoming challenges with feedback. Number 1. Common obstacles. While feedback can be incredibly valuable, it's not always easy to handle. Some common obstacles people face include defensiveness, misunderstanding, and emotional reactions.
Defensiveness often arises when we feel that feedback threatens our self-esteem. We might react by denying the feedback or making excuses. Misunderstanding can occur if the feedback isn't clear, or if we interpret it differently than intended. Emotional reactions, such as frustration or disappointment, can also hinder our ability to process feedback constructively.
Number 2. Strategies. Let's discuss some strategies to overcome these obstacles and make the most of the feedback you receive.
First, practice active listening. Focus on understanding the feedback fully before responding. Ask clarifying questions if something isn't clear, and avoid jumping to conclusions or making immediate judgments.
Second, work on managing your emotional responses. Take a moment to breathe and reflect on the feedback without reacting impulsively. It can be helpful to separate your feelings from the actual content of the feedback.
Third, embrace a growth mindset. View feedback as an opportunity for growth rather than a personal attack. Remind yourself that feedback is meant to help you improve and succeed.
Additionally, try to seek feedback regularly rather than waiting for formal reviews. This can help you get used to receiving feedback and reduce the impact of potential negative reactions.
Examples. Let's consider a personal example. Alex, do you remember the time when you received feedback on your podcast presentation style?
Yes, I do. Initially, I felt defensive because I thought I was doing well. However, I took a step back, listened carefully, and realized that the feedback had valid points. I used that feedback to work on my delivery and presentation skills.
Exactly. And a well-known example is Steve Jobs. Early in his career, Jobs faced significant criticism and was even ousted from Apple, the company he co-founded. However, he took that feedback and those challenges to heart, using them as a catalyst for growth. He returned to Apple and transformed it into one of the most successful companies in the world.
These examples highlight the importance of overcoming challenges associated with feedback. By addressing obstacles head-on and applying effective strategies, you can turn feedback into a powerful tool for personal and professional development.
Absolutely. Feedback, when embraced correctly, can lead to remarkable improvements and successes. Keep these strategies in mind as you navigate feedback in your own journey.
That wraps up our discussion on overcoming challenges with feedback. In the next segment, we'll offer some practical tips and takeaways to help you apply these insights effectively in your own life. Segment 10. Real-life examples and success stories. Number 1. Personal experiences. Let's dive into some personal experiences. I remember a time when I was working on improving my public speaking skills. I received feedback from a mentor about my pacing and use of visuals. Initially, it was hard to hear, but I took it seriously. I practiced incorporating their suggestions and noticed a significant improvement in my confidence and delivery. This feedback helped me become a more effective communicator.
That's a great example, Alex. For me, feedback on my writing style was crucial. I was advised to work on clarity and structure. I implemented the changes, sought additional feedback, and ultimately saw a major improvement in my writing. This process not only enhanced my skills, but also helped me get recognized for my work.
Number 2. Success stories. Now let's look at some well-known success stories. One notable example is the tech company, Netflix. Netflix has consistently used feedback from its users to refine and improve its service. They actively solicit customer feedback and use it to drive product enhancements and innovations. This customer-centric approach has played a significant role in their growth and success.
Another inspiring story is that of Elon Musk. Early in his career, Musk received critical feedback on several of his ventures, including PayPal and Tesla. Despite facing significant challenges and criticism, He used this feedback to make critical adjustments and improvements. His resilience and openness to feedback contributed to his achievements and the success of his companies.
These examples highlight how feedback can drive success on a large scale. Whether it's personal growth or organizational development, embracing and effectively utilizing feedback can lead to remarkable outcomes.
Absolutely. By reflecting on personal experiences and studying successful examples, we can gain valuable insights into the transformative power of feedback. It's a reminder that feedback, when approached with an open mind, can be a catalyst for significant growth and success.
That wraps up our segment on real-life examples and success stories. Next, we'll summarize the key takeaways from today's episode and provide actionable tips for applying feedback in your own life. Segment 11. Tips and Takeaways. Summarize key points. Let's quickly recap what we've covered today. We discussed the definition and types of feedback, how to receive and give feedback effectively, and the importance of integrating feedback into personal and professional growth. We also explored common challenges and strategies for overcoming them.
Exactly. We also looked at real-life examples and success stories which demonstrated the powerful impact feedback can have. Feedback, when embraced with the right mindset, can lead to substantial improvements and achievements.
Actionable tips. Here are a few actionable tips for effectively giving and receiving feedback. 1. Be specific. When giving feedback, focus on specific behaviors rather than general traits. This makes it easier for the recipient to understand and act on it. 2. Practice. Active. Listening. When receiving feedback, listen actively without interrupting. Reflect on the feedback before responding. 3. Set goals. Use feedback to set clear, actionable goals for improvement. Create a plan to implement changes and track your progress. 4. Seek feedback. Regularly. Don't wait for formal reviews. Actively seek feedback to continually improve.
Remember, feedback is a valuable tool for growth. Approach it with an open mind and use it to drive positive change in your personal and professional life.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the English Hustle podcast, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more listeners and continue providing valuable content.
Stay tuned for an episode full of actionable tips and expert advice to help you make the most of your time. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.